to get somebody like me, Kancha, Jean, and High Court judges all together on the same platform, because normally divisions are made, सबको एक एक लेबल दी जाती है, ये जज है, ये एंटी नेशनल है, ये वो है, ये वो है। और इस शासन का परंपरा तो यही है कि सबको बांट के जगह जगह में करके शासन करना। सो एनीवे टुडे हम लोग सब यहाँ इकट्ठे हुए हैं, लेकिन अयोध्या में 2 लाख लोग इकट्ठे हुए हैं कोई दूसरा एजेंडा के लिए। अब हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को बिल्कुल ख़त्म करने वाला एजेंडा है, बिकॉज एज वी नो द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बिगिन्स विद सेइंग दिस इज अ सेक्युलर एंड socialist republic, and in fact the way we are moving is to declare India a corporate Hindu republic, which is how they would like to change things. Professor Kancha Ilaya spoke about how we as a country do not have equality in our DNA. But not as a country, before human beings ever had the idea that human societies could be organized into countries, way before that, divisions had been made in which human beings were not divided. In other cultures there is racism, there is classism, but there is no culture in which this kind of division is given a divine approval. इसमें यही है जो बाकी सारे जो हायरार्की, सोशल हायरार्की के सिस्टम से अलग करती है, कि अपार्थाइड हो या रेसिज्म हो या क्लासिज्म हो, उसमें भगवान को बीच में नहीं लाते ना। वो तो सीधा सीधा मानते हैं कि इंसान ने ये डिविजन्स किया है, लेकिन इसमें भगवान को ले आते हैं, उनके अपने भगवान को। I mean, just to see what kind of a country we are, just say, I'm not going to speak very long, only because I have very complicated things to say and I much prefer to write them than to say them. But I'll just give you a small example to look at how this country functions. You know, since 1947, there has not been a single day in which the Indian Army has not been deployed within the borders of this country against its quote-unquote own people. So what were those places where the army was deployed? Nagaland, Mizoram, Manipur, Assam, Kashmir, Punjab, Telangana, West Bengal, against the Naxalites. So you see, and who are these people? They are Adivasis, they are Christians, they are Muslims, they are Sikhs, they are Dalits. So you see, in its nature, an upper caste Hindu state, ruling not just with capital, not just with social capital, not just with financial capital, not just with historical capital, but with military might to keep itself in power. Recently, this is again just to continue Kancha's point. Before I come to, I'll read a little bit about the Constitution, but recently a very senior statesman, actually the President of France, was visiting, and I met him, and I said, you know, if you want to understand the difference in the economy of India and China, you have to understand the caste system. I said China is an economic power because it's a manufacturing power. It makes everything. It makes American flags, it makes Ganesh Murti, it makes kites, it makes underwear, it makes everything and supplies it to the world. India, if you look at who are the heads of the Indian corporations, the major Indian corporations, whichever, Reliance, Adani, all of them, predominantly the economy is controlled by banyas who don't know how to make anything. So they only know how to sell what they don't have to buy, which is what you take from the ground, what you take from Adivasi land, you know. So the people that are being called anti-nationals are actually the people who are fighting for the Constitution. And the people who are in government are the ones who are trying to destroy the Constitution. So this is the current state of affairs in our country. But I just want to read you something from a book that I wrote, which will be published in Hindi shortly, because it isn't true that when Baba Sahib wrote the Constitution, first of all, it was a big struggle for him historically to get onto the Constituent Assembly. There was a huge attempt to try and keep him out of it. And then when he was on it, he had to deal with so many upper caste people trying to put the agenda, you know. So ultimately, I'm going to read to you just 2-3 pages about the complication of what this great process was. It was a great process, and it is a great constitution. And it is an incredible thing for a nation like ours to say that all men and all women are equal. But there was still a lot of problems that he had, and he wrote about and he spoke about. And I want to just read this little story about it. So writing a constitution for a country like this can be a radical act. And Ambedkar tried his best to make it one. However, by his own admission, he did not entirely succeed. As India hurtled towards independence, both Ambedkar and Gandhi were seriously concerned about the fate of minorities, particularly Muslims and untouchables. But they responded to the approaching birth of the new nation in very different ways. Gandhi distanced himself more and more from the business of nation building. For him, the Congress party's work was done, and he wanted the party dissolved. He believed that the state represented violence in a concentrated and organized form, and that because it was not a human entity, because it was soulless, it owed its very existence to violence. But for Baba Sahib, he knew that whatever, and Gandhi's understanding was that Swaraj, which is self-rule, lived in the moral heart of his people. Though he made it clear that by his people, he did not mean the majority community alone. It has been said, this I'm quoting Gandhi now, it has been said that Indian Swaraj will be the rule of the majority community, i.e. the Hindus. There could not be a greater mistake than that. If that were to be true, I for one would refuse to call it Swaraj and would fight it with all the strength at my command. For to me, Hind Swaraj is the rule of all the people. It is the rule of justice. But Baba Sahib Ambedkar knew that regardless of what Gandhi said, it would inevitably be the majority community that decided what form Swaraj would take. The prospect of India's Bahujans being ruled by nothing other than the moral heart of India's predominantly Hindu people filled him with foreboding. Ambedkar became anxious, even desperate, to maneuver himself into becoming a member of the Constituent Assembly, a position that would enable him to influence and shape the spirit of the Constitution for the emerging nation in real and practical ways. Ambedkar's main concern was to privilege and legalize constitutional morality over the traditional social morality of the caste system. Speaking in the Constituent Assembly on the 4th of November 1948, he said, "Constitutional morality is not a natural sentiment. It has to be cultivated. We must realize that our people have yet to learn it. Democracy in India is only a top dressing on an Indian soil which is essentially undemocratic." Ambedkar was disappointed with the final draft of the Constitution, although he did succeed in putting in place certain rights and safeguards that would, as far as subordinate castes were concerned, make it a document that was far more enlightened than the society it was drafted for. He thought of the Constitution as a work in progress. Like Thomas Jefferson, he believed that unless every generation has the right to create a new constitution for itself, the earth would belong to, quote, the dead and not the living. But the trouble is, eventually Ambedkar resigned as law minister. Can you just imagine the morality of this man saying this, what I'm going to read, when the whole country, all the rich people, all the politicians, all the priests and sadhus are gherauing parliament. And he resigned. Where do we have this kind of morality in our politicians today? He said, to leave inequality between class and class, between sex and sex, which is the soul of Hindu society, and to go on passing legislation relating to economic problems is to make a farce of our constitution and to build a palace on a dung heap. More than anything else, what Ambedkar brought to a complicated, multifaceted political struggle with more than its fair share of sectarianism, obscurantism and skullduggery was intelligence. Now, just before I end, I want to talk about what Deswara Wilson was talking about. You know, all over the world, people have, all civilizations have learned to deal with their own shit. You know, only here, when somebody tells somebody that you have to clean your own shit, he becomes a Mahatma. You know, so in 1936, at the time when Ambedkar wrote The Annihilation of Caste, Gandhi wrote an essay which was called The Ideal Bhangi, जिस आदर्श भंगी, और उसमें उन्होंने ये सब लिखा कि आदर्श भंगी का क्या क्या क्वालिटीज़ होना चाहिए वगैरह. It starts off with this: the Brahmin's duty is to look after the sanitation of the soul, and the Bhangi's the body of society. So this was the Mahatma who said that everybody should do their ancestral duty. And at the end he says, my ideal Bhangi would know the quality of night soil and urine. He would keep a close watch on these and give timely warning to the individual concerned. But such an ideal Bhangi, while deriving his livelihood from his occupation, would approach it only as a sacred duty. In other words, he would not dream of amassing wealth out of it. Matlab, ye kaam bhi karo, paisa bhi nahi kamao. 70 years later, in his book Karma Yogi, Narendra Modi, he withdrew this book afterwards, but in that he says, I do not believe that he's talking about Valmikis. I do not believe they have been doing this job just to sustain their livelihood. Had this been so, they would not have continued with this kind of job generation after generation. At some point of time, somebody must have got the enlightenment that it is their Valmiki's duty to work for the happiness of the entire society and the gods, and that they have to do this job bestowed upon them by gods, and this job should continue as internal spiritual activity for centuries. So this is the father of the nation and the prime minister of this country. So where are we going to get? If we keep believing in absolute rhetoric and lies and not facing the fact that this is a country whose morality is seriously based on something unacceptable to all of us, here at least in this room. So if you look at Indian society today, in this book, the doctor was saying there are statistics. Who compromised the majority, what castes of High Court judges, of Supreme Court judges, who own all the media houses, who are all the editors, who are all the corporate heads, who are all the money lenders from the Kirana stores to the corporate. The caste system is completely and fully in place. Democracy has not eradicated caste, it has modernized it. The only time, एक ही वक्त है जब इस देश में रोज हम जाति की बातें सुनेंगे, वही इलेक्शन है कि ये किसके लिए कौन क्या किसको वोट देंगे, उसके बाद बस कुछ भी नहीं। और रिजर्वेशन के लिए भी, रिजर्वेशन भंग करने के लिए भी इतना शोर मचा रहे, लेकिन सिर्फ रिजर्वेशन के एलिजिबिलिटी के लिए भी सिर्फ 5% दलित पॉपुलेशन में 5% का एजुकेशनल क्वालिफिकेशन है, तो उसी में भी लड़ रहे हो, बाकी के लिए कुछ भी नहीं। प्राइवेटाइजेशन में नौकरी भी नहीं। अब all the corporates are mostly बनियास, all the editors are mostly ब्राह्मण। मैं कहती हूँ कि हम लोग यूनिवर्सिटी में दलित स्टडीज़ करते क्यों, लेकिन बनिया स्टडीज़ क्यों नहीं करते? बनिया स्टडीज़ करने से बहुत कुछ पता लगेगा, बहुत कुछ इस देश का जो मशीनरी के बारे में पता लग जाएगा हमें। और जो मैनुअल स्कैवेंजर्स है या म्यूनिसिपल स्वीपर्स है, वो सब एक जाति का। तो कास्ट और कैपिटलिज्म दोनों एक साथ मर्ज करके एक बहुत ही यूनिक, बहुत ही इंडियन सोशल सिस्टम बना चुका है, बहुत ही मजबूत। और जब तक हम लोग अपने जो the revolutionaries and radicals who were then at the time of the freedom struggle sponsored by the industrialists, whose memories are now sponsored by the industrialists, who are kept in place, until we question our history, until we question the history written by our elites that keep this social system in place, we will always be like walking on a water wheel, Thank you.